My wife, who I was making this artwork for, had to start this video off with some sign language, aka gang symbols. If you can figure out what they are, I'll give you a shout out in the next video. So to get this started off, we're going to be using gouache on acrylic paper. I try to use this heavy duty paper so that it doesn't wrinkle as much, but it still ends up happening. The subject is going to be Medusa. My wife has a couple of different Medusa pictures. I did one a couple years ago for her. I thought it'd be cool to make something new for her. To quote Wikipedia, Medusa is generally described as a human female with living venomous snakes in place of hair. For this picture, though, I wanted to do locks with snakes kind of mixed into them to get both looks. In Greek mythology, Medusa is described as being terrifying and beautiful. I picked a reference photo of a woman that was bored, just to make things interesting. I was having trouble with this one, trying to figure out what was going to be hair and what was going to be snakes. So I had the idea to use a marker, just because it's thicker and it covers more area than a pencil. The one thing differently I wish I would have done with this hair was put more snake heads in it. In the end, there's only going to be one. There's plenty of snake body and tails, but there's only going to be one snake head. I'd probably change it if I do this again. Once I got all of the hair laid out, it's time to start with the gouache. I'm still trying to figure this whole thing out with gouache. I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't like that it's not completely opaque, but it's still very transparent like watercolor. I like to use the shadows to try and help figure out where I'm going to have things facing or just the direction I want to go with a lot of pieces that I do. I think you'll start to notice that in like a lot of stuff that I do, that I'll start with shadows to try and figure out directions that things are facing or just kind of their orientation inside the piece. And there's my Medusa's one snake. Her single living snake in her hair. Next time I'll add more. This next part is probably one of the things that you will never see me do again. I say never, I'll probably use it at some point, but to do just a complete wash of one color, it was really irritating. It might have been the gouache because it's like you can see the pigment just didn't spread out well. It wasn't really even. I couldn't get a good consistency. I was using a brush that was too small for the size of the area. It just turned out bad. And then after all of it got done, it left ripples in the paper, like wrinkles, that through the entire process of painting the rest of it and inking, it just got really irritating. Here's one really good example of it. If you're wondering, I was watching the Meg 2. The ripples are really frustrating, but a cool life hack that I did learn while working on this piece is that if you have an iPad or I think this works with a cell phone as well, if you have a reference photo that you're trying to keep open without constantly touching the screen to keep it on, without changing the settings as well, one thing you can do is use a movie app and minimize the screen to one corner, and it'll just keep the screen on as long as you need to use it. Now, this phase of the piece that we're currently in, I would consider the ugly phase. I've heard a lot of different artists talk about this, but this is definitely the ugly phase. I was trying to work through using these gouache paints, but it's just not like watercolor in the way that you can build them up, because sometimes it's more opaque, sometimes it's less opaque. But the one thing was, at the end of the night, I kind of just gave up and was like, I'll figure this out the next day, and it really ended up working out. The one thing was, I let everything dry. It kind of had this chalky texture to it, but what I was able to do the next morning was come back with water and just go over everything with water, and it blended in really nicely. And I really was using just water. You can see as it kind of like builds up, it runs down the piece. I don't know how other people feel about this. When things kind of get messy on my artwork or if there are mistakes, I try to just include them and make them a part of the piece. I feel like it adds character. It also kind of is probably, I guess, a part of my style. It's kind of like when I see people put a piece of paper under their hand when they're using pencils or like when they're using charcoal, but I feel like it just kind of adds to it. Like you're in your piece because now you can see your handprint in the actual artwork. It might be weird too, but in a world of like AI art and digital art, having your own handprint in your artwork, I feel like it's one of those touches that you can't add any other way by doing it yourself by hand. And I think that's really cool. And this brings us to the main event. This is what I've been waiting for. I've been trying to find these micron pens. These are Pigma micron pens. They're brush pens. I've been trying to find them specifically because they don't come in black. There's a single black pen in there, but they come in blue, green, red, purple, I think pink, brown, and orange. Specifically, I wanted the purple and the brown pen. I wanted to do this piece with yellow and purple, and then to have the ink be purple because it appears to be black, but it's one of those things where, like, if you really look at it, you'll actually see that the ink is purple. And when I see a lot of other people's artwork that's like this, I think it's one of those cool touches because you can see the lines and you know that they're inking something, but it's just the fact that it's actually not black. It just kind of adds to the atmosphere or like the attitude of that artwork. I know a lot of people can probably understand this, but this is the most nerve-wracking part. It's like some part of the eyes, the face, the nose, the mouth, just in the inking process. You've done all of this work, and this is that one moment where you can just easily mess everything up by just having something go wrong. And if you notice it, the end of that finger is actually like completely black because I screwed it up, tried to fix it, screwed it up some more, and ended up just leaving it. And screw ups, I guess, have just kind of been one of those things where I just try to make it a part of my artwork, kind of like my shaky hands. I've been making shorts about this, joking about the fact that if I draw for too long, I get these shaky hands that you can see right here, and I just get little waves in my lines as I'm inking. I don't really care that much about it. I think it's actually kind of a cool style to add. You see it in everything that I do, but I think it's just a part of kind of just owning what you have. I gotta finish this thing off with just drawing the hand because my daughter always says that she hates drawing hands because she thinks they're difficult. And I do too, but I kind of just try to push myself to do it. So eventually at some point I'll get better because I love drawing hands way more than I like drawing eyes. If you've made it this far, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you'll like, definitely leave a comment. This is my version of a bored Medusa, and I will catch you guys next time. Thank you.